What is going on, guys? It is WrestleGamia here, back with another video. Well, we started this journey with the Smackdown series a few months ago, and now we finally come to our first big change. This was the year where 2K decided to change the name of the series to Smackdown Vs Raw, something which would stick for almost a decade until it was changed again. And there are reasons for this which we'll go into a minute, but suffice to say the change in the title didn't cause for any less Easter eggs, hidden secrets, or just fun little facts to be available in the game. So be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell, because today we're going to look at 9 facts you didn't know about WWE Smackdown vs Raw. Number 1. Why did the name change? This was probably the biggest question on fans' minds at the time. Why bother changing the name of this already established franchise? Well, there were a couple of reasons for this, as it turns out. First of all, it appears that the developers may have felt they'd run out of suitable subtitles to give the franchise. Yes, reports at the time suggested that after Here Comes the Pain, the developers couldn't think of any better ones to use for the next title, which doesn't seem entirely right, as catchphrase Machine John Cena was already well established on the roster by this point. Surely Smackdown You Can't See Me would have been fine, so we're not sure how much credence we'd give this one. The other reason, which seems to be a bit more believable, has to do with the brand extension. By this point, this was firmly rooted on WWE television, and the idea of brand warfare was something being pushed heavily within the company. Season mode in the game also included these separate brand options this time around, so it looks like the developers wanted to really stress this as a core feature by labeling the title Smackdown vs Raw instead. Just think back though that the brand split had already been established via Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. It's odd why they hadn't renamed it at that point. This is given more credence by the fact that when this name eventually was changed again in 2011, it was at a time when the brand extension was basically dead already. The only question now we have is with it being revived again in recent years. Does this mean we can expect 2K Smackdown vs Raw 2022 in the future? Would you want the game to go back to its roots? Let us know in the comments down below. Number 2. You're fired! The WWE Smackdown vs Raw heralded a change in the WWE Games series, reflecting the company's ongoing brand extension for the first time with its new name. But one thing it didn't reflect though was the exit of 3 wrestlers on this roster. By the time the game came out on November 2nd, 2004, A-Train had already exited the company, though it had only officially come the day before. He would go on to work in New Japan for a while before returning to WWE and eventually snagging a role as the company's head trainer. Sable was released from her contract on August 10th, though this time her exit was far more cordial than it had been the previous time when she ended up filing a sexual harassment lawsuit against the WWE. Why did she leave? Well, according to her husband Brock Lesnar, she would leave to spend more time with her family. And last but not least, technically by the time the game released in Europe, 12th November 2004, Chuck Palumbo would be released from the company, though he would later return in 2006 to steal The Undertaker's badass gimmick. Number 3. Online play. While it seems crazy to imagine a video game without an online play option, back in the days of PlayStation 2, such things were still very much in their infancy, and Smackdown vs Raw actually serves as the first WWE licensed game to have the option of online play. Of course, by today's standards, where things have advanced so much, what's available here may seem quite archaic, but it was groundbreaking at the time nonetheless. You could choose to fight in either a singles match or a bra and panties match over an internet connection, meaning you and your friends didn't even have to be in the same room anymore, so less physical fights could arise of someone being accused of cheating. It should also be noted that this was the first console wrestling game outside of Japan to feature an online mode, showing that for all the criticisms they had in recent years, THQ really were ahead of the pack here. Strangely enough though, the Japanese version, Exciting Pro Wrestling 6, never actually had an online mode. Number 4. I hear voices in my head. Another first that came from Smackdown vs Raw was its inclusion of voice acting for characters in the game's season mode, provided by the actual wrestlers.
Want to come down to the ring with me and do a little scouting?
While wrestling games had to use audio sound bites in the past, most notably from the commentary team, the season mode had been more text-based, likely due to the amount of extra lines of dialogue that would have been recorded for it. Well, this time the developers went all out and had full voice acting to make the game's season mode feel that much more immersive than it had before. The only thing is, they must have been recording it in an open barn somewhere, because the amount of reverb is unbelievable.
Well, tonight is your lucky night because the champ is going to face off against two other of this brand's top superstars in a steel cage.
Also, the wrestler you choose doesn't actually have a voice, so it can lead to some awkward moments. Number 5. An extra boost. A fun little Easter egg that can be found while playing the game comes in the form of an extra boost to your character's energy, as while in the middle of a hardcore match, you fight your way to the main backstage area and go over to the far left of the screen. You should see a canned drinks machine. Irish whip your opponent into that machine and a can will pop out. Hit square next to it and your wrestler will drink it. While it may at first seem like nothing more than a funny animation added into the game, it actually serves a purpose, as your fighter will now have more power added to their Smackdown meter. I would love to see some indie promotion try this one out in a real match, Popeye style. It's kind of a thing that would fit in perfectly at a DDT or Joey Janela's Spring Break event. Number 6. A unique prize. Now if you're playing through the season mode of Smackdown vs Raw and feel like going for the WWE Championship just isn't enough for you, there is a way to get a far different prize at the end. To do so, you would have to win the title belt around the time of the Royal Rumble and make sure you lose it on the night Trish Stratus flirts with you. After this happens, you must win every match until you get to WrestleMania, where you will fight a Raw team, a Smackdown team, and another third team depending on which show you're on in a Tornado Tag Team ladder match. What's different about this match though is that instead of a briefcase or title hanging from the rafters, Trish's thong will be waiting for a winner to be plucked from the rafters. It's certainly different, we'll say that, and sounds like something straight out of Vince Russo's playbook, but then again, the THQ story modes were always at their best when they gave us crazy story options like this. If you win the match, the game will also tell you that Trish is now your manager, though the season mode ends here, so you won't actually get to see this one play out. Number 7. Missing in action. As with all wrestling games, with the bringing in of the new comes the throwing out of the old, and Smackdown vs Raw saw a few wrestlers being removed from the series. These cuts include Billy Kidman, the British Bulldog, Eugene, Doug and Danny Basham, Jackie Gator, Lita, Rikishi, Sergeant Slaughter and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's worth noting that it appears the Basham brothers were supposed to be in the game at one point, as evidence that the fact that their name call audio is still on the disc. As well as this, the British Bulldog was originally intended to be a playable character in the game, but his character model couldn't be implemented properly due to the developers being unable to resolve licensing issues surrounding his likeness at the time. As for the rest of them, they were always going to be cut, though it's weird to think of a WWE game that doesn't include Steve Austin in some form. We have to wonder what was going on that year. This is probably down to the negative relationship he had with WWE at that time. Number 8. Commentary secrets. Now if there's one thing that perhaps has been the biggest source of criticism for the WWE 2K series since its inception is the often woeful commentary. Relying on jarring and disjointed sound bites is a problem the developers have never been able to crack, and it usually manages to sound even worse than the real life WWE commentary, which is quite an achievement. That being said, we have to give credit where credit is due, because THQ and the development team did do some things right with the commentary this year. For example, if you remove Batista from Evolution in the game's option menu, JR and the King will promptly update their commentary to refer to the animal as the former member of the stable. It's a nice little touch that shows that at least some thought and effort was being put into this. On the flip side though, commentary also has some major gaffes this year, such as calling wrestlers by the wrong name, referring to Rob Van Dam as Bradshaw, or if you fought as the team of Rico and Charlie Haas, Lillian Garcia introduces you incorrectly as Rico and Chuck Haas. So yeah, it's not much of an improvement after all. And number 9, you're out of here. Now managers can be a source of frustration in any wrestling game, as it can be very easy for opponents' advocates to interfere on their behalf and make it all that more difficult for you to get a win. Just as in real life wrestling, this can be a great heel tactic, but it can become really tiresome after a while. Thankfully, there is a way to get managers ejected from a match if they're causing too much trouble for you. To do this, you'll have to choose a one-on-one match and attempt to pin on your opponent every time you hit a finisher. If you do this, your opponent's manager will try to interfere in order to save their client, but after the third time they've distracted the referee will eject them from the match and they will disappear from your screen, making things a bit fairer and evening the odds. But there you have it guys, a look at 9 facts about Smackdown vs Raw. Of course, next is the much praised Smackdown vs Raw 2006. So be sure to tune in when that comes out. As always, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.